Welcome to everybody. This is the first meeting of the Labour in Exile network following the AGM, or the inaugural meeting in February. My name's Esther. I'm on the steering committee and I'll be chairing this meeting, and you'll see various other members of the steering committee that you elected at the inaugural meeting during the evening. So welcome to members. You'll know that we now have a membership structure, so you can join LIEN. We've opened this meeting up to people who are not members in order to provide an opportunity for people to join in the LIEN discussion. And we hope that you will join at or after the meeting. We will put a link in the chat as to how you can become a member of LIEN, but you can also look at the webpage or the Facebook page as well. We had 530 people registering for this evening's meeting, and we've still got people joining. So it's really, really good that we do seem to be forming an effective network for Labour in exile. We know that we are probably now experiencing the most damaging crackdown on democracy ever seen in the Labour Party, at a time when effective opposition is more important than ever. Well, this crackdown appears to reflect wider problems in our society, as we've experienced recently in the streets, including here in Bristol in response to the police crime sentencing courts bill. We know that the party has employed a previous intelligence agent of the Israeli state who worked in the Israeli cyber warfare unit as its social media manager. We know that this person was following the LIEN page on Facebook and its Twitter account. We know that the regional bureaucracy has enacted various subversions of democracy, some of which I expect to hear about today. We know that in addition to the recent officer suspensions, because they did not obey the unconstitutional diktats of the unendorsed General Secretary, thousands of members have been investigated for various alleged breaches, and we know that many of the accusations were malicious and unfounded. The LIEN Witch Hunt Analysis Group is conducting a survey to gather information on this, and we'll hear about this today as well. Finally, we know that socialists in the Labour Party are not backing down, far from it. We will hear some of their stories today, and we will use these to build on the LIEN plan for action, plan for change. We'll also hear from LIEN working groups, and we will take contributions from the floor on how we can get everybody to be involved in taking our work forward. So the focus of this meeting, as well as hearing from members and hearing what people are doing, will be on action. So be prepared to think about how you'd want to participate in the working groups that you have, and generally in the work of the Labour in Exile network. So on to business. The first session, just for a few minutes, is an update on current issues, including the Labour Party conference and how we want to contribute to that. So over to Tina Werkmann. Thank you, Tina.
Hiya. Yes, thank you. I'm a member of the Labour Against the Witch Hunt and Labour Left Alliance, as well as LIEN. I think we have to clarify first. We have a lot of emails before this meeting asking about our relationship to the Labour Party. Are we in? Are we out? Do we want to work with Task, SWP, etc.? I think for us, the point of this network is to bring together all those who recognize that the Labour Party is an important arena of the class struggle. It's not the only one, but it is certainly, as the last 5 years have shown, it is a very important arena. The right has used every weapon at its disposal in the last 5.5 years to stop us to get properly organized and to stop us taking over the Labour Party. This shows that, I think, in my opinion, if you stay in the Labour Party, and I would, if I could, I would have stayed in the Labour Party, but the only point to staying in it now really is to fight. If you're not prepared to take on the right and to fight back, I think there's very little point in staying. And if you can't do it because, you know, locally the forces are just so difficult, then, you know, I can't blame anybody who wants to leave. But, you know, it's important, I think, to get collectively organized. What we're trying to do is have an active approach to the Labour Party. Don't just take everything that's happening and, you know, the attacks by the right, just take them on or whinge about it, but try and do something about it. For example, in the forthcoming local elections, we say there really is no point, and there certainly is no need to campaign for right-wingers. Why? You know, what we will see what happens, what they do to us. You know, they won't be kind to us if we're kind to them, quite the opposite. So we're saying, have a look at these candidates' politics and put some pertinent questions to them on our website. Hopefully comrades can put this on in the chat. We've published a very good short platform and say that only candidates who fight against the purge and against the attacks on free speech should be supported. Also, Labour Party conference is coming up. That is definitely a form of Labour Party conference happening this year. Between September 25 and 25th in Brighton. And we urge comrades, if you're a member, if you're not a member, come along to it. If you are still a member, please do try to become a delegate. It can be very unpleasant in branches and CLPs, etc. But it's very important to show in such an important national event. It's not taking many useful decisions, but it's, you know, on TV a lot, etc. Come along and show the left has not gone away. Bring Palestinian flags again and wave them. That was pretty cool in 2018 and 19. But also there's issues coming up, like the appointment of David Evans as Labour Party General Secretary needs to be ratified by conference. Now, can you imagine if some of the bigger unions get on board and vote down his ratification, what kind of impact that could have on our struggle and how it could re-energize the left? You could also try to get a rule change or a motion through your branch and CLP, and our working group on the witch hunt is preparing a rule change, for example, to abolish fast-track expulsions, which were introduced in 2019 and have become a major problem in getting rid of the left. The Labour Left Alliance has also published a rule change on their website that would allow Labour Party members to launch a leadership challenge, and at the moment only MPs can do this. So, you know, these were things that could make a real difference if they go through. If you're not a member anymore, if you've been suspended or expelled, or even if you just resigned, please still come along if you can, because we've got some quite exciting plans actually for Labour Party conference. A number of left organizations are getting together to organize a free speech space, a left space at conference for whole 3 days, a full program of you know, films, discussions, educational events, etc., in one venue, which we shall announce in due course. So this will be quite cool for the left to get together in this. Having talked about the Labour Party as an important arena, there are other struggles going on, including the attacks on academic freedom and the right to protest, which is becoming a really serious attempt by the right to shut us up. This Wednesday in Bristol, we are protesting. We're allowed to go in person from Monday onwards. We can have protests again. We're having a protest in defense of David Miller, the academic, the professor who's being threatened with losing his job, and the right to protest this Wednesday on March 31st in Bristol. So if you're anywhere near or could come, it would be really useful to see you there. So Brighton in September, Bristol March 31st, and please join LIEN as a full member to become part of our collective fight back. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tina. So now we're going to move on to what we've called shadow CLP arrangements. So I know that people might want to use a different way of describing it. And we're going to hear from a number of CLPs as to how they're continuing to organise despite the undemocratic atmosphere in the party at the moment. And first of all, we're going to hear from East and West Ham. And we've got Carel Buxton and Roger Silverman to tell us what they're doing there. So we need to find you. We're just looking for you. Are you here, Roger?
Yes, I
You're
am.
here.
Here we go.
Yeah, I'm here
Okay.
as well,
Oh,
Esther.
good. You're obviously unmuted. We're going to spotlight you now so we can see you.
Okay.
So over to you.
Okay, well, I'll go first, if that's okay.
Thank you.
My name's Carel Buxton. I'm chair of West Ham CLP, and we were suspended 2 weeks ago alongside our neighbouring CLP, which is East Ham. Across the two CLPs, we've got over 5,000 members who are now disenfranchised. I'll give you a very short bit of background about our area. It's nearly 80% of our community are Black or minority ethnic. We've got 60 Labour councillors, 2 Labour MPs, and a directly elected mayor as well, who's Labour, of course. So it's solid Labour. And from 2015, I mean, thousands joined the Labour Party locally. It had been a very small rump, right-wing, both CLPs, and we, as activists, have been at the forefront of campaigning, but we've been subject, as I'm sure most of you have too, of smears and abuse and vilification, most of it public. If any of you watched the Al Jazeera films, The Lobby, you know, we could identify several well-known faces from West Ham CLP within at least one of those films. So that was the sort of background. So about 2 weeks ago, we were suspended. There's political reasons behind that, of course. First of all, they're terrified of us because we're the activists, and they know that we're a real threat because we actually control both CLPs. We have all the officer positions bar the secretary's position in West Ham. So the reason for suspension was threefold. Firstly, substantial complaints of which we know nothing about, unethical recruitment practice, which as officers we'd seen 2 wards in our CLP have an increase of membership of over 500 in each ward, and we'd actually reported it to that. This was in May, June last year. And we'd actually reported it to the London region, and they'd done absolutely nothing about it. And the third one case for suspension was electoral fraud. That was a bit scary when we read that. No, nothing about electoral fraud, but evidently the chief political correspondent for the Times, Henry Jeffman, had contacted the Metropolitan Police about this for an article he was writing. And they said, yes, indeed, they had a referral to them in August. No officers from either CLP knew anything about it, but it was investigated and there was no case to answer. So that third area is just smoke and mirrors. We know that we've got coming up selections for councillors for 2022, and they know that we'll win that. There's the East Ham Central by-election as well on the 6th of May, and they want to impose their own councillors. So what we decided was that we're not leaving the Labour Party. The Labour Party seems to have left us. And so as activists, and we've had some big successes here around campaigning, that we would carry on. And we've set up Newham Socialist Labour, which is a network of like-minded socialists who are prepared to fight back. As Tina has said, there's nothing you can do but fight back now, and that's what we're doing. So we've set out a statement of aims. We've identified our priority campaigns. We've got regular meetings, and we know we've got great big fight coming with against the cuts that are going to be really hitting us deeply around about September. So what we want to do is reach out to the wider movement. We've got links with the trade union movement, but we want to link across the country with other like-minded people, with ghost groups. And we called it ghost because This comes from one of our comrades, Tricia, who said it was a ghost because you can't kill us and we're coming to haunt you. The prospects for the Labour Party look pretty grim. You know, there's no real relationship, I don't think, that they have with ordinary people, particularly locally. So it would be really good to link up with other people here. And I think I would urge the idea of a recall conference rather than just having the Labour Party conference and hoping that we get somewhere with that. I think we should call a recall conference of like-minded people and set out the ideas of fighting for socialism that way.
I think
Sorry,
we can come
I've
on to that
overtimed.
later. Thank you. Thank you, Carol. Are you there, Roger?
Yes, yes, I'm here.
Good, we'll spotlight you.
Right. Comrades, I've really, Carel has explained it so well, but I'll just make a few points about the background. First of all, let's put it this way. Why did we launch Newham Socialist Labour? We didn't ask to be suspended. When we were, what else were we supposed to do? Submit, go home, keep our mouths shut, abandon the working class of Newham, which, as Carel has said, is among the country's most deprived populations in Britain? Should we sit back and wait patiently for friends in high places to plead our cause? They weren't much help to thousands of other victims of the witch hunt, and they weren't much help to Jeremy Corbyn, come to that. So what was the alternative? Continue our exemplary campaigning work, as Carel has explained. They have deprived us of the right to do this under the name of the Labour Party, so we simply carry on under the name Newham Socialist Labour. And looking at the context, I know everybody knows this, but I do think this is something that we emphasise. We can't separate the organisational from the political background. A year ago, exactly a year ago, Sir Keir Starmer won the leadership election, promising to continue the radical policies of Jeremy Corbyn. Since then, he's refused to oppose new Tory laws exonerating the military.
Are we losing Roger or is it me?
And the security services for war crimes.
Hey,
He's
Roger, we're
supported
losing,
the-
Losing Roger.
That's it.
we're losing you, Roger. We can't hear you.
Really?
Oh, we've
Can you
lost
hear me?
Roger.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, do you want to make your closing comments, Roger, please? Thank you.
Well, okay. When West Ham called for free speech in the party and passed overwhelmingly a vote of no confidence in the party leadership, the regional bureaucrats had warned us then that this was not competent business to ask for the democratic right to express opinions or call the elected leadership to account. Where else is free speech and the right to question who is the leader banned? Putin's Russia, the general's Myanmar, and Sir Keir Starmer's Labour Party, the former head of Liberty. So what are we going to say? It's time to fight back. We fully supported, and Carel mentioned this, we have to link it up with the national picture. We fully supported the call for a recall conference, but obviously the request was declined. How could any other outcome have been expected? So what's the next step? Those who have at last summoned up the courage to make this call, the campaign group, Unite, the Fire Brigades Union, the Bakers Union, Momentum, together they are the bulk of the Labour Party. So let them take responsibility for convening such a conference themselves. That's the only way to save the party. We're not calling for a split, but Starmer and Evans and Rayner are making one. Newham is just the latest battlefield in the one-sided civil war which has been called. We are the active party membership in the area and we won't be silenced. It wasn't our choice, but the party bureaucrats. None of us here asked to be exiles. Our aim is to reclaim the Labour Party in Newham and nationally. All over the world. Okay, all right, I'll leave it there.
Here, Roger. So I'm from Bristol Northwest. I'm a suspended secretary, and I can see Pam in the chat also a suspended secretary. And for me, it's meant that because both the chair and secretary have been suspended, that the CLP is also suspended like yours. And now we're going to hear from the chair of my CLP in Bristol Northwest, Hedley Bashforth. Hello. Over to you, Hedley. Tell us what's been going on in Bristol.
Yeah,
North West.
well, you know, but I'll keep it brief because I mean it's a similar story to other CLPs. Bristol North West, by the way, was one of the seats that Labour won in 2017. It had been Tory before. It's a Labour Tory seat, but elected a Blairite MP, and a lot of the problems in the CLP stem from that. So there's been an agenda, I think, to deal with the CLP ever since 2017, and now we're here. Esther and I have both been suspended since November, which has effectively shut the CLP down, and other EC members who've tried to get meetings going of the executive have been threatened with action by the governance and legal unit. But what we've done in the CLP is just try and maintain a network of about 50 comrades. We're not as far on as East and West Ham in terms of organising, but we've got a fairly effective but informal network of people, CLP members, and we're just trying to keep people in the party for the moment. But we're hampered, you know, we can't communicate with our 1,300 members. I wrote to some people privately, about 30 members privately, and one of them was a grass, it turned out, and reported my email to the regional office, and I got a threat of being reported to the ICO, and they pointed out, the Labour Party pointed out, that the ICO can fine people up to £20 million. So that's the kind of game we're in. The CLP is effectively shut down, but it's weird for Esther and me because we're both, you know, one day we get letters saying you're out or answer this list of 1,000 questions, and the next minute we're getting letters, I mean, I guess Esther's getting them as well, saying find your role in the party, you know, come and help us campaign and do this, that and the other, and so they're all over the shop. But I think the more interesting thing about what's going on in the constituency at the moment is in one of the branches, which is the safest Labour seat. We've got council elections coming up, and we selected two great young candidates in their 20s, and the council's, you know, not well off for people under 50. So they're on the left, and so they were marked out, and of course both have been blocked, despite a well-attended and procedurally sound meeting. And then there was nothing until last week when our regional office wrote to all the members of the branch and said, come to a selection meeting. Here are the two candidates for the two seats. No statements, nothing. And at that point, the branch committee resigned for obvious reasons, but haven't left the party. And then 24 hours before that bogus selection meeting was due to take place, the meeting was cancelled. I mean, just as a measure of where we are with the party and how strange things are, the letter cancelling the meeting said these two candidates should be duly elected. Now, if anybody knows what that means, can they let me know? Put it in the chat. They should be duly elected. But of course, there was no election. And the CLP and the left comrades in the CLP are kind of rallying around that issue and trying to get it raised in the NEC. But I mean, I'm telling you all this, I suppose, just to add a bit of colour to all the local struggles that are going on. I mean, I welcome this initiative because it's bringing us together. And that's vital. Left unity is vital in the coming period. But I did want to make a comment about one thing that the East Ham comrades said about ghost CLPs, and I don't really like that term to describe what we're doing to try and set up alternative structures where we can maintain some political activity and try and get back control of the Labour Party. Is the term ghost CLP. I mean, I'll try and share this picture with you to make the point, because when the campaign was launched in Bristol last week, the election campaign, this was the picture. I don't know if comrades can see that.
Yes, we can see it.
And I mean, of course, it prompted immediate responses from people. Zombie invasion. I mean, the ghost CLP is this online out of control outfit that's going around kicking people who are just trying to get on with the business of being members of the Labour Party and campaigning to win support for socialist policies. They've got their finger on the party's mute button. I mean, I'm not surprised that the Jackie Weaver video was so popular, because it resonates with so many people's experience at work as well as in politics, that it's what the online shift has done is give more control to people. And I think what you're seeing in Bristol, I mean, Esther mentioned it with the the street riots, the street fighting that's been going on with the police, another 1,000 people out last night, is that people want to get back to face-to-face politics. I mean, not necessarily going out and scrapping with the police, or that doesn't show any signs of abating in Bristol. And that's what we need, really. I mean, people are frightened of the virus, but we need to create the spaces where we can talk to each other in a human way. And so we're organising events like in Bristol, we've got a Walk for Palestine coming up for the Nina Franklin Fund. And the more events like that, where we can socially distanced, meet up and talk to each other and get away from, however useful events like this are, and they are useful, but get back to some kind of human politics.
Yeah, thank you, Hedley. I completely agree with that. And actually, Tina's already mentioned the lobby and the rally for David next Wednesday, so you can come along to that and do some socially distanced lobbying and protesting if you want to in Bristol, on the very same College Green where some of the riots took place. So there you are, take a part in the action. Thank you very much, Hedley. We'll pick up what we call ourselves, because I agree with the real party, and we'll move on to Stroud and Vanda. Are you there, Vanda?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me all right?
I can hear you.
Good. Right, well,
can you switch on your camera?
No.
No? Okay.
I've got to start my video here. I haven't got a video.
It's all right, you don't have to if you don't want to.
Oh, hang on. Right. Okay, anyway, hello, comrades. Obviously, to get anywhere, we have to get organised. And to do that, we need to be able to communicate with like-minded people. So when in my area, so many good left-wing members left the Labour Party, we set up a Facebook group for current and ex-members in the area. We also invited as many as we could onto a group on Messenger. Obviously, any known right-wingers weren't invited. So now we can keep each other informed about what's going on. And once we have a plan of action, we should be able to rally our troops. As an example of how this actually works, our members were recently asked to join the Socialist Health Association. They had elections recently, and they were given the list of the candidates who were against NHS privatisation. So when voting took place, all 15 of our candidates got through, including the chair, the secretary and the treasurer. So we had a clean sweep, in spite of the fact that the right-wingers are also organising against us. So it does work, see? So please set up similar communication groups in your own areas. We need to be ready for when the time comes to take action. One thing that's coming up soon, what's going on here? You're right.
Yeah, okay, carry on, Vanda.
One thing that's coming up soon is the election of the delegates to conference. So if you're still in the party, please don't leave, because we need you to step forward or vote for left-wingers in your party who can then vote the right way. So David Evans' position, as has already been said, as General Secretary, is still to be ratified. We need to vote against this, as he's the one who's behind the purges and suspensions. So that would be a good start. That's the way to do it. And remember, we are many, they are few. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much, Vanda. And by the way, I'm the treasurer that was elected to the Socialist Health Association. So please join the SHA to support the NHS. Now we're moving west down to Plymouth, and we have Pat Campbell. Are you there, Pat?
Good evening, comrades. My name's Pat Campbell. I'm sole remaining political education officer of Plymouth Moor View. My good comrade Terry Deans, who I job shared, was witch hunted, and yet that hasn't stopped us organising. Behind the scenes, we formed a group called Plymouth Region Left Alliance and affiliated to Labour Left Alliance. And we've had massive successes down here. We're a fairly right-wing controlled Labour Party, but 2 of our CLPs have fought back and scored victory after victory, pushing back against right-wing dominance. We always hear stories that we can't fight back, but certainly here in Plymouth, that's not the case. We've taken them on and we've pushed them back, so much so that they've brought their witch hunters down to try and face us off. But we hope to organise even further, to join any shadow organisation that wins back the class struggle in the party. You know, to join up from right across the city, even though we're being intimidated, harassed and pushed all the way, but that's spurred us on. And I'm sure Terry later on will give you even more news of how we're fighting back in Plymouth. Thank you, comrades.
Esther, you're muted.
Oh, sorry, yeah, I'm muted temporarily because there's a dog barking. Yeah, thank you, Pat. It's great to hear about the resistance down in the southwest. Thank you. So we've got a little bit of time now to hear from comrades on the floor about your experience, but particularly agreeing actions that we can take forward through the various working groups that we have. So what we can do is we can pick up actions today if we can, and if not, we'll take them back through the steering committee to agree how we take those actions forward. So we'll take contributions now from the floor. I'll have a look at hands that are raised. I've got 2 raised hands. Oh no, I've lost them now. I've got, yeah, Peter Spillane.
Oh, very practical. You know, the West Ham are standing candidates in the council election. Under what banner are they standing them? Are they standing as Labour candidates, which I don't think they can do, or are they sort of standing them as, you know, West Ham Socialist Labour?
Can we have an answer from?
I'll answer that, Esther.
Yeah, thank you, Carol.
No, in London, we've got the mayoral election, and Sadiq Khan is the Labour candidate. In the East Ham Central by-election, there will be a Labour candidate. West Ham Socialist Labour are not standing any candidates. We are still in the Labour Party. And as I said at the beginning, the Labour Party has left us. We haven't left the Labour Party.
Thank you for that clarification, Carol.
We're not standing any candidates independent of the Labour Party.
Yeah, I hope that's clear to everybody. Good.
Oh,
okay, the next hand that I've got up is David Turner. Go on, David, your contribution, please.
Good evening, comrades, and thank you very much for this opportunity to speak. I feel that this is a natural home for myself, and greetings from Liverpool. I think that some of the strategic programmes and frameworks that people are talking about should naturally be framed as a mirror to each of, if people are outside the party now, then they should be in a natural mirror image of the party in each constituency, so people have a genuine alternative. Whatever the name is something that has yet to be determined, but I totally support the idea of people having a genuine socialist alternative with a socialist programme that expresses itself. And thank you, Brian Precious, for the claps. But I actually think that that's what we should be doing. There should be a genuine socialist alternative programme in every constituency, and where wards allow it, wards at ward level. And thank you very much for this opportunity to speak. It's the first time I've spoken, and I've attended several of these very inspiring meetings. Thank you.
Thank you very much, David. So that gives people something to work on, doesn't it? A set of local socialist policies. And when we have those face-to-face meetings too. Thank you very much. I've now got Harriet. Hello, Harriet. Can you unmute, please?
Hi, hello everybody, and thanks for all the contributions. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Carry on.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, good. Thanks for all the contributions, really great so far. I just wanted to talk about the councillor selections, actually, because as some people know, I used to be a councillor but resigned in disgust because of the right-wing nature of the Bristol City Council, and the 3 other Labour people, left Labour people who were on the council have all recently done the same. But what I wanted to say is that there's a new phase that's going on at the moment, where a lot of our duly elected councillor candidates are just receiving letters saying that because of stuff they've posted on Facebook, they're no longer acceptable to the Labour Party. So there's a sort of new element to the purge. And I'm not sure that this has happened elsewhere, but I'm sure it will. I guess this Israeli spy guy is now going through all the candidates around the country looking for Labour people to purge. And this is worrying because the councils are an area where right-wing policies and right-wing people are really entrenched.
Right.
And we have to do something about the councils, I think.
I don't email. I mean, I only get emails.
So
can people mute apart from
seems to be okay.
That was my first point. And the second point is to say that, you know, I think we really need to go for a new party now. I just think the Labour Party, I'm staying there, but I think it's finished. Like, I think we need to put pressure on the union.
Harriet, I do need to remind you that at the moment, LIEN is working for democratising the Labour Party rather than talking about a new party, of course. Okay, but yeah, thank you very much. And of course, I recognise everything that you're describing there in Bristol. Thank you very much. Next, we have Brian. Brian Precious, can you unmute, please? And for your contribution, thank you.
Hi, thank you, Esther, and very happy to be on this call with and including you. First, I remember your manifesto when you stood to be treasurer, and it was a very good manifesto indeed about people, you know, opening out the finances of the Labour Party, democratising the finances of the Labour Party. So very good to have you with us if we're talking about any kind of shadow organisation. Yeah, we shouldn't be maybe this time talking about setting up a new party, but we should certainly. I think a very good idea is to set up these shadow organisations, preferably in every constituency across the country, to show that craven trilateralist careerist that you know, he might have succeeded on December the 12th, 2019, in shifting the Brexit shift and inflicting the worst defeat we've had since 1935 on the Labour Party in order to topple Jeremy Corbyn, in order to advance himself. But he won't get away with it in the long run. We've got to go forward with these ghost CLPs or shadow CLPs or para CLPs, whatever people want to call it, because we've got to show that we are the real Labour Party. Even, you know, the anti-Semitic expellees like me, we've got to show that we are the real Labour Party. They are not. They are the right wing. They are the unrepresentative. They are the smear campaign, which was launched to get a vicious, ferocious smear campaign that was launched against a perfectly fine man. There's a fine and honourable man, and I hope you've yet to hear the last of the fight back for Jeremy to clear his name. He's been subjected to one of the vicious worst smear campaigns in British history. So forward with what you're doing in Bristol, and I'll try to be in a big conference.
Thank you.
And I'll try to join Newham Socialist Labour or be a friend of Newham Socialist Labour. So all the best, guys.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Brian. Well, actually, that idea of having a shadow or ghost or whatever CLP in every CLP in the land, that's a great idea. I'm seeing some people in chat talking about setting up another party. I have to keep saying that LIEN, at the moment, we are trying to democratise the Labour Party because it's our party. So we have to keep trying to achieve that. Next, I've got Les Emery. Hello, there's your contribution, please. Welcome.
Yeah, very short contribution. Thank you, everybody. I'm in Worcester CLP, and basically it's so right-wing we haven't got an organised left at all, but we keep trying. So 2 quick points for me. I'm going to be in the Labour Party till they kick me out. I agree that the Labour Party is leaving us, but it's the only genuine, for me, it's a genuine working class movement that we can use to fight back. And Jeremy proved how successful the Labour Party could be if we'd have taken more of a stronger position organisationally. That's all I would say. So the thing for me is that how do we get over the point that I'm still going to vote Labour in the local elections? I'm going to do it because I hate the fact that I've got to do it, but I don't want anybody saying to me that I'm the cause of the Labour Party being unelectable, and that's something that we really need to figure out. What's our stance on voting for the Labour Party? The second point is momentum. Momentum, for me, I've got no idea what Momentum are doing, and I'm supposed to be a member, and I pay my subscriptions, and I've got no idea. And this issue that they're saying that members of Momentum must be in the Labour Party before they can join, I think that's outdated now. I think Momentum have got to really make a stance now to show what they truly are. And then the other thing, at conference, which I'm definitely going to go to as observer, hopefully a delegate, but here goes. But what about the World Transformed? Are the World Transformed doing anything as well? And what about our relationships with the World Transformed? And thank you for letting me have the contribution.
Thank you very much, Les. It's good to hear from you. And yeah, we will need to look, and we are working on links across the whole of the left. Thank you for that. And over to you now, Peter. Welcome.
Very much. Hillsborough, Brightside in Sheffield. Wanted to partly build on something that Roger was saying earlier in his report. The fact is that this is not just a purge, it's a coup that has taken place in the Labour Party. And the Starmer and the leadership have got such power, as we've seen, to control what goes on, to purge people, to suspend them, and so on and so forth, that we're faced with a situation of how concretely, in effect, do we confront what is a coup in the party that is in effect killed the party. If you have to go to court to get even your ordinary rights as a member, then in effect the party's been killed from the head. Our issue is, how do we remove that head? That's our task. Exactly. Our task is to remove the Starmer leader.
I want to say something.
So what I think we need to do is, we need to use the huge membership that we have and the support for Corbyn and Corbyn policies, but we need to somehow translate that into an organisational force that is able to directly challenge and confront the leadership. We do need to think, therefore, about organising our own conference, a recall conference, trying to force all the Labour Party organisations that are opposed to the Starmer leadership to unite with the trade unions, who have massive resources at their disposal, to put the issue in this way, that the Labour Party actually had it unless we can organise resistance in the form of an organised conference, an organised movement, and force those people like John McDonnell, Richard Bergen, and others who have said a lot, but they've not yet called over the head of the Starmer leadership for the membership to revolt against what they know is taking place. They have to put their political careers on the line right now, and we have to raise the temperature. We have to call on them and to demand that they do what they should do and do their responsibility, and try and get the maximum organisation into the trade unions, the Labour Party members and leaders to get a new conference, a recall conference, and to organise to try and remove the leadership that we've got. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. And that point about the unions, of course, is very important. We know that Unite alone contributes or contributed £2 million out of the total £16 million union donation. So that alone is a big hole in party finances. So definitely one to work on. Thank you. Can I move now to Anita? Hello, Anita.
Can you not see me?
Oh, no, I can't see you. Your hand's not up. Clara, we'll come to you.
Clara.
We'll come to you after Anita, all right?
Okay.
Oh, hello, comrades. I I only really was able to become active in the party in the last 2 years because I was fighting to try to get my Downs daughter into quality placement against a lot of Labour Party ideology, I might say, in Bristol in particular, our mayor. In any case, just, I suppose maybe because I hadn't been seen to be with momentum or with the other Starmer team, so to speak, I just like to say that there are a lot of really good people left in the party. And by some accident or actually just moving very quickly, I became chair of our branch in Ashley, as Harriet knows. And we have a really nice, really good exec who are quite committed to trying to do the right things. It might cheer some of you up to know what a mess they have created here. There was a phone bank, which I kind of, tapped in on. And honestly, at least half the phone bank were politicians trying to get themselves reelected. It is so bad. They have really screwed up brilliantly badly. So yeah, we are also going to have our last meeting, public meeting. I've invited Esther and Deepa and several other people to talk about the right to protest. So I do think we need to keep pulling up the politics, particularly this bill question. I mean, I'm now involved in a whole lot of policy thing about what should our statement be for the candidates about the Bristol so-called riots. And honestly, you have never seen such weak-kneed people. So, whatever we can do in forums or other groups or Twitters or whatever, keep putting forward what we think is the correct policy to be leading. They are a bunch of witless wonders, some of them, but there are some really good people still left, and Amira Cole being one of them.
Thank you, Anita. I remember that one, witless wonders. And it's great to work with you in Bristol. Let's move on to Clara now. Clara.
Hi, thank you. I just want to first of all say thank you for having me. And I want to agree with what the comrade, the one that talked about the head. For one, I cannot see myself voting Labour this time around. I would not. And we need to get the word out about what this right-wing Labour, the damage they are doing to the Labour Party. And I believe that a lot of people who join Labour Party is because of the left policies. And if those policies have been removed, I think the Labour members need to know this. They need to know who CARE stands for and as against what they stand for. And we need to also get the unions. We pay dues to the unions. They've got to stand against the leadership of this new right-wing Labour. If the unions are not ready to step against them, then the members of the unions need to be told of what their members, their money is being used for to support a right-wing leadership. And I think that every right-wing Labour candidate should be voted against. And I personally, I will campaign against any right-wing Labour candidate standing in any positions in either in the local elections or in the national elections.
Thank you very much, Clara. It's lovely to hear from you. And next we have Graham. Graham Durham. Would you like to make your
comment? Hi, comrades. Yeah, Graham Durham, Brent Central in London, Northwest London. One of those suspended in January 2020 for daring to stand as a socialist candidate for the NEC. Greetings to all. We've all been suspended, those for different reasons. Just one thing before I just supported what was said earlier. I'm very disappointed to hear people talking about the riots in Bristol. To me, there's a police riot in Bristol, and I salute and stand 100% behind the young people who are fighting this police bill. And I do hope everybody will stop calling it a riot. I prefer an insurrection myself, but it's a peaceful protest, and we should really stop using the Tory language about this. Incidentally, as you'll all know, in 1831, Bristol was controlled by the working class for a few days,
Yeah.
And the Tories then called it a riot.
Yeah.
So, you know, that's absolutely not very good. Now, on the question of how to go forward, I do agree, not that we should be putting pressure on John McDonnell and other people. We should actually be calling our own conference and forcing, you know, this organisation and others of socialists in the Labour Party who want to take back the Labour Party. And we should make sure that nobody at all should be allowed to block that, not Richard Bergen, John McDonnell or anybody else. And then if they want to come to the conference and talk about how we're going to take back the Labour Party through local groups like the excellent comrades in Newham, who are fantastic comrades who supported me and we supported them, then I think that's what we should do. But I think we've had enough in the Labour Party left of relying on people to do things for us. I would like to personally make sure there was a challenge to Keir Starmer after the May elections. That to me is a critical task. And I would like to have a conference organised by Labour in Exile and others of similar groups, Labour Left Network and so on, for whom I was a candidate for the NEC, to organise that. We can't sit about waiting for people who don't want to fight. Thanks now.
Thank you very much. So we ain't going to do anything if we don't do anything. Thank you. We shall now move on to Andrew Paull.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, thank you. Your
Yeah,
contribution.
I see the fundamental problem is that, you know, the neoliberal revolution, which started with Thatcher, needs to be challenged. You know, it concentrates wealth into fewer hands. It puts greater pressure on Labour. It's a system that won't work, and it's what the Labour Party supports under Starmer. And I'm not subscribing to the party as a, you know, I call it a neoliberal workers' party, which is an oxymoron. So, you know, I'm not a member of the party anymore. I've left. I was also disgusted at the way he treated Corbyn. I thought it was a disgraceful thing to do. And the smear campaign that went on. I mean, I know there probably are cases of anti-Semitism, but it was used as a vehicle. It was weaponized to exclude the left. And the other thing I think that the left is also missing at the moment is the environmental movement. There's got to be more emphasis on the environment. We are really running out of time with global warming and biodiversity. So we need to embrace the Green Party as well and have more of a collective movement. And beyond that, I'm kind of really, I'm worried about whether the true Labour Party can take back control, because Jeremy took them by surprise when he won the leadership, but they're ready for this now. And that brings to the fore, should we really start a new party? You know, I mean, I know that's.
I know I keep saying we're not here to talk about that.
I know, but it's about winning the policies at the end of the day. That, you know, it's not about the policies have to go forward. We have to have a kind of agenda which benefits everyone in society, rather than this increasing, you know, inequality in wealth and in power and the destruction of the environment. And we're really running out of time. And can we do it within the Labour Party, or do we have to do it outside? That's the question.
Yeah. So just turn around neoliberalism and socialist policies and a way of achieving that. That could be via an alternative left conference, couldn't it?
Yeah, but it's not viable with socialist politics. It's this belief that the market will provide for everyone if you leave it alone, and it doesn't.
Of course not.
And that's where Starmer is, and that's where the establishment is, and that's that's the problem. How do we fight that? How do we fight the media? You know, it's so biased. So I don't know what to do, where to go, or who to support.
All right, we'll add that to our list of things that we need to be working on. Then thank you very much, Andrew. Thank you.
Good to chat, everyone.
Next we have Ian Ampleford.
Thank you. I'm in North Devon, and I'm a member of Momentum. I'm pleased to report, for the benefit of somebody who mentioned Momentum earlier, some of us were at a big meeting about a week ago. There's some 180 people there, and Momentum is still alive. A wee bit centralist and lost touch with people like us in North Devon and other parts of the country that's still alive, and they're putting the environment at the top of the agenda. Now, with regard to your strategy, and I'm going to join LIEN, we've got two paths to travel on, I believe, strategically. One, we must get to conference, if that takes place in September, with the resolutions. Otherwise, the right wing will dominate that conference. We also need the conference that's been intimated tonight, and I'm sure Unite and the unions will be able to finance that and make it happen. I mean, we can do it on Zoom anyway.
Yeah, great idea.
It doesn't need big finance. Very important. We're in a constituency. It's interesting to hear what Plymouth were talking about, because they've carried on. I'm carrying on the environment. I'm not doing anything else. I'm arguing for the environment. The climate crisis is so important. I'm a member of CERA, so we're still injecting into the party. Funnily enough, Clive Lewis, who's supporting the climate emergency and ecology bill in Parliament, is not getting the support of all our MPs because they don't want to work with the Green Party, right? And Michael Meacher got the Climate Act in 2008 with 400 MPs putting pressure on our then Labour Party government to legislate, so it can be done from a private member's bill. But I'm very heartened to hear that Pat in Plymouth is still be able to carry on with business as usual. We in North Devon are protecting our chair and secretary, but they're running scared of the regional office.
Yeah.
And I think I'm here tonight because we need to get together with a program in our alternative conference. So I'm looking forward to that. That needs to happen after the local elections.
Thank you. We can have a Southwest regional meeting there as well, can't we? Okay, thank you very much. So we have 5 more. I think we will squeeze in these 5 before we go on to our next session. 5 more participants who wish to speak. First of all, Rona, over to you, Rona.
Okay, I can waffle a bit, so please cut me off if I'm waffling too much. But I hope everyone saw what I put into the chat. I really feel that, okay, the environment is an extremely pressing issue, but I think we should be very mindful not to let one issue dominate. If we do actually set up a list of organizations or causes we're going to support as an organization, I think we should just not forget the fact that this government have killed over 200,000 disabled people through DWP policies. Any one of us could lose our jobs, any one of us can become disabled, and then we'll be at the mercy of a very broken welfare system that allows people to die knowingly and willingly and covers up evidence of those deaths. It takes away mobility scooters from people who need them in order to work, and then finds them fit for work, as a result of which they end up starving to death because they have no benefits for months and months. I was in that category. I had no benefits when I transferred from carer's allowance to PIP. It took me 5 months. My friends took me in. Had they not taken me in, I would be dead. So I just really feel that we need to kind of, you know, I'm not saying that we shouldn't be campaigning on the environment, but I do think we also need to look at government policies over the last 10 years and how they've decimated this country, and what we need to do as an organization in order to push against them with all of the will that we have as a collective of human beings.
Thank you, Rona. I think that fits with the overturning neoliberalism theme, doesn't it? Thank you very much for what you said. Thank you. And now we have John Courtney. Hello, John. Courtneidge, sorry. Over to you, John. Are you still muted?
Thank you. Yes,
yeah,
I just wanted to flag up the organisational possibility of organising locally a guild of cooperators. So here in Littlehampton, we have a Littlehampton and District Guild of Cooperators, and with my friend Victor Logan, we've organised a South East London, Northwest Kent and South East London Guild of Cooperators. And the idea of that is to identify if the need should arise, local independent non-federated candidates who will request that the plan for cooperative socialism be debated and then implemented in Parliament, and to then sit in the House as an independent group of parliamentary group of cooperative socialist MPs. Now that plan for cooperative socialism is in the interestfreemoney.org website. If people Google the phrase co-operative socialism, they'll find it. And in the chat, I will put a link to a blog called sustainability-not-capitalism.blogspot.com, which outlines both this organizational opportunity of local guilds of cooperators and the parliamentary proposition to debate and implement that plan for cooperative socialism.
Thank
Just
you,
to
John.
close,
Okay,
just to
go on.
close with a sentence, the idea is that there's no point in us putting ourselves forward if we don't have a plan. That worked in 1945 and it will work again. Thank you.
Thank you very much, John. Penultimate contribution from Tony. Tony Greenstein. Hi there.
Yes, thank you, comrades. When Jeremy Corbyn was suspended, Momentum's Andrew Scattergood and the other co-chair put out a statement which said, "This suspension undermines the fight against anti-Semitism." That statement, I think, indicated the political weakness of the Momentum left and much, in fact, nearly all of the campaign group left. I think we have to be extremely clear. We suffered a massive political counterattack by the right when Corbyn was elected. And they didn't do that by attacking him over austerity. They didn't particularly do that by attacking him over his position on nuclear weapons. They did it by taking what they saw as the moral high ground, anti-Semitism. And I think we have to be absolutely clear. There never was an anti-Semitism problem in the Labour Party. There was a problem of Zionism. There was a problem of the infiltration of the pro-Israel lobby, but there was never an anti-Semitism problem. Of course, there were a few anti-Semites in the Labour Party. There always have been. There have been far more in the past than there are at present. It's like saying that because in a party of 500,000, you're going to have a few paedophiles, therefore Labour had a paedophile problem. That's absolute nonsense. At one and the same time, that the Tories were sitting in alliance in the European Parliament with open fascists and anti-Semites like Robert Zeil of the Latvian Fatherland and Freedom Party, who marches every year with the veterans of the Waffen-SS. Labour was unable to point to the hypocrisy of our opponents. That was the problem. And I have to say about Jeremy Corbyn, he was absolutely wrong in 2016 to adopt the IHRA, the 38-word definition, not the illustrations, because he went down that road. And by appeasing our opponents continually over anti-Semitism to the point where Jeremy said, if you deny there's a problem, you are part of that problem, he left the door open for the right wing to savage him. We have to be politically absolutely clear. There never was an anti-Semitism problem in the Labour Party. And now today, of course, they don't even bother to pretend about it. You mention Zionism, you mention Israel, and you're suspended. And the only state in the world which is an apartheid state, yet if you criticize it in the Labour Party, you are suspended as an anti-Semite. And we have to say quite clearly, we are a party of anti-imperialism. We oppose the West's right to police the third world and to derive our resources and all the rest of it from that. And we have to make clear, and that means momentum. Momentum has to overturn its heritage of John Lansman. It has to go back and it has to re-examine, because unless we do that, politically, we are disarmed for the future. Thank you, Comrade.
Thank you, Tony. So if Momentum members, if you can take those messages back, please, to your local groups, your leadership, thank you. And finally, I'm sorry, Bruce, we won't have time for you today, but finally we have Ian, and Bruce, we can talk to you later. Ian, go ahead.
Good evening, comrades. Lovely to hear so many people here. Personally, I live in Bassetlaw, which is a horrible place for a socialist of any description to live. This was John Mann's constituency. I left the party in November last year, but I have every intention of joining again once we get a decent leadership. I feel that by staying in, I'm subsidising them to carry on the coup against the left. So I felt that I certainly didn't want to subsidise that as well. Now, I'm interested tonight hearing that it's okay for Unite to stop paying the Labour Party, which I completely agree with. But there's some objection to people leaving the party, even on a temporary basis. So I'd be interested to hear anyone who wants to make comments about that.
All right.
Thank you. That's all I've got to say.
Yeah, no, I see the issue there with consistency. Thank you very much. So thank you for all those contributions. I've picked up about 10 points there that we need to build into our action going forward. But I don't really have time to go through those 10 points because we might have time at the end, because we're now going on to the next session, which is the introduction of the LIEN working groups that we have at the moment. And at the end, we'll have an opportunity for people to make further suggestions. So we're going to ask one of the members of each group to present to us the work they've done before. And in each session, there'll be opportunity for brief feedback from the floor and brief comment from the floor. So shall we start then with our press, social media and outreach group? And we have Terry Deans and Lizzie Fletcher. Over to you, Terry and Lizzie.
Hi, hi everybody. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello. First of all, look, I want to just thank everybody for organising this, and I just want to say also, I want to acknowledge the pain and the suffering that every single person in this Labour Party has suffered since being witch hunted. There's a lot of emotions, a lot of pain being going out there with people who've been kicked out of the party and expelled and suspended under very, very dubious circumstances. And I can understand how they feel. And I think we should acknowledge that and also salute their courage and bravery for sticking around. And I hope that we can find a home here in LIEN. I'm quite a new member of the Labour Party 5.5 years ago, and I'm determined to fight as best I can. But I know everybody's got different ways of doing it. So the press and social media outreach working group, we're already up and running. We've got about 7 in the team so far. If anybody wants to join it, please, I'm just going to put in the chat now actually the file which describes what we do, and you can read it at your leisure without me reading through it all. But we've already, through Norman Thomas, who is our press officer, have had some fantastic press releases in the Morning Star, the Canary. We've had some stuff in Squawk Box and various things. So we want to try and use the social media independent organizations to get our message out, which has really helped. And one of the reasons why there's so many people at this meeting today is thanks to that. So if anybody wants to join, get in contact with the information at LIEN.org. There's a web link. Tina's just put it up now, and you can link into that. But basically, the whole point of the working group, the press release one, is to get people to come in and join. Enthusiasm, we're at the starting point, so we need people just to bring their enthusiasm, their talents, and as a coordinator I will do everything I can to bring everybody together to form our best working policies and practices, and we will find out how we're going to work going forward. There's a young lady, I think she's younger than me, called Lizzie Fletcher, who's part of the IMA, the Independent Media Association, who's going to have a quick chat now to you about the various independent media outlets that we're currently using and we have at our disposal. Thanks very much. And don't forget, guys, you can join LIEN via the website. And anybody who doesn't join LIEN, who still wants to coordinate and connect with the working group for the press and social media, I still welcome them, because we need people on the outside to communicate with. So don't feel embarrassed if you're not in LIEN, still contact us and I'll work with you. Thank you. Lizzie,
thank you, Terry.
Hi.
Lizzie, thank you.
Hi, everybody. Right, my name's Lizzie and I run Unity News. It's got about 70,000 people on its audience, and together with 44 other media outlets, we became the Independent Media Association. Those 44 other media outlets, I couldn't possibly name them all, but you know, ones you will have definitely heard of: the Canary, Squawk Box, Vox Political, Where Red, Evolve Politics, Real Media. But then we have 16 media outlets which comprise the Independent Media UK, which is solely social media. They're not websites particularly, so they just concentrate on getting stuff out. So whoever you choose to read, if it's an independent media association group, and you can check it out if you just look up Independent Media Association on Google, you can check us out and there's a scrolling title of all the partners in Independent Media Association. And if you want to look at our Facebook group, it's Independent Media UK. So just go on Facebook and look us up on there. So any news that you get from that website or that page is guaranteed covered by Impress. Most of us are with the National Union of Journalists, but we're also covered by Impress, which is the Independent Media Press Regulation Society. And so we are bona fide, and we might make errors, slight errors sometimes, but we are the voice of the people. The mainstream media is the voice of the people that earn 200 grand a year, and we're the voice of the people that are suffering and vulnerable. So thank you very much for listening.
Sure, Lizzie. Please let us post the details in the chat if you can. We've also had various messages from people about motions. Now, this meeting's not received any motions in advance, but from the discussion, it's clear that many suggestions and topics for motions have come to mind. So we will be having future meetings, and we will be writing to people to request motions for discussion at future meetings. So thank you very much for your ideas. Next, we're moving on to our Changing the Labour Party group with Norman. Hi, Norman, over to you.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can.
Good, yes. I'm Norman Thomas. I'm the suspended chair of South Thanet CLP. So I'm in very good company with many of the people on this call. Yeah, the Changing Labour Party working group hasn't had any meetings yet, but I know that there is interest in it, and I hope that the people who have already expressed interest will come to the next meeting of the group, and also those people who from this meeting want to come will come. And the details, the website, the email address is on the website, and you can take advantage of that. What is it all about? Well, at the heart of the Labour in Exile network is the Plan for Change, which is on our website. And the Plan for Change breaks down to 3 simple aims. We want to bring real democracy to the Labour Party. We want to end the witch hunt and future witch hunts, and reinstate people who've been either expelled or suspended. If they've been unfairly suspended or expelled, we want to reinstate them. And we want to bring justice back to the party, a good system based on natural justice. So that's the Plan for Change. The Working Party Changing the Labour Party is to work out the nuts and bolts of how do we change the Labour Party to achieve those ends. Now, it's not a small task, and it will take a lot of work, but we need to have it worked out, and that's what the Working Party will be all about. I think it will require a radical change. It will require basically us stopping letting lots of people represent us, and we, the ordinary members, representing ourselves. So it'll be, we need to break the cycle in the Labour Party. We don't want to keep on repeating the same thing, which is that, you know, the left makes some sort of advance, then the right comes along and turns it all over again. We have to fundamentally change the structure of the party to represent members on a non-hierarchical basis, grassroots democracy, not a pathetic veneer of democracy which the Labour Party has at the present. I think technology is going to play a major part in that. I think Zoom, things like Zoom technology are very important. Of course, we've got to be in control of the Zoom technology, not the paid officials who have shown themselves very willing to pull the plug if people want to use Zoom to talk about things they don't want us to talk about. But Zoom allows the party nationally to get involved in important decision making. And that's the point, really. We have to get involved in the decision making. We have to have an end to things where we have ridiculous slates of members who we vote on in some hope that somewhere down the line we'll have one or two extra left-wing members of the NEC who may or may not at some point in the 12 months that they're there actually do something, which they often don't. So we want the end to that kind of rotten democracy and have a real democracy in the party. The fish rots from the head down. This is my last statement. The fish rots from the head down. The head, in this case, isn't just the head at the front of the Labour Party, it's also the Westminster hierarchy, the Westminster establishment. We're on to a much bigger thing than just changing democracy in the Labour Party, than instituting democracy in the Labour Party. We want to institute democracy in the country at large. So it's a big job, it's a vast job, but changing systems and structures always is. But please, if you're interested in getting involved in this, get involved in our working group, Changing the Labour Party. The email is on the website, and I look forward to meeting you at the first meeting of the working group. Thank you.
Thank you, Norman. Another analogy there with heads. That mirrors what Peter said earlier on. So let's, oh, by the way, all of the email groups for all the email addresses for the groups are on the interactive agenda, so you can pick them up there as well. We're now moving on to the witch hunt analysis group that I referred to earlier on. And we have Neil. We're just talking about Zoom technology. Well, Neil has come to us all the way from Australia. What time is it there, Neil?
It's 6:22 in the morning.
Well done.
So thank you. Yes. So here I'm in exile in the penal colony of New South Wales, thanks to COVID. But just to say a little bit about myself, I am one of the founding members of the Labour in Exile Network. I'm also a veteran of the Kinnock witch hunt from the 1980s. So I take a long view on this process. Now, the witch hunt analysis group has actually been up and running for a couple of months now. We are a very well-established group. And essentially what we do is gather information and analyze that information for the purposes of campaigning, for example, in publications, resolutions, press releases, and so on. Very brief, I mean, you've got a description of the group there on the page, but very briefly, we've been doing about 4 things. First thing, we've been gathering statistics about the nature of the witch hunt, how many expulsions, how many suspensions, and so on. We've already produced we had a meeting actually before the conference with myself and Esther gave an account of the statistics as we knew it then. There is a video of that, so if you want to look at that, I'd strongly recommend that. So we already know quite a lot, but there's a lot we don't know. Now, one of the things we've also been doing, we have a questionnaire which we've been circulating to members of the Labour in Exile Network to find out information from them about their experience of the witch hunt. And again, we've already had quite a few responses, and we are in the process of drawing up a report on the basis of that. And we've already got a lot of really interesting, useful information from that. And I mean, just very briefly, it should come as no surprise that the vast bulk of people are 2015 Corbyn rejoiners, or joiners or rejoiners. We know that there was a massive acceleration in the purge going from the end of 2019 when the so-called fast track changes were brought in. So that's another major theme that we've been working on, is on campaigning against the fast track. And we've been doing 3 things on that. One is raising people's awareness of it through press releases. The other is we have a new resolution. I think Tina alluded to this at the beginning. We've got a model resolution coming. We want to go through all the CLPs to get the 2019 conference changes completely scrapped in their entirety. It's clear that although it was said that they were supposed to deal with the most egregious cases of so-called anti-Semitism, the fact is they've now been taken over the dominant mode. But now the right have got control of the NEC. They've completely excluded the NCC almost altogether. So people are being witch hunted on a mass scale without a hearing, in complete contravention of the principles of natural justice. So we've got that resolution, which is shortly going to be circulated. So we urge everyone to support that. Also, I've been beavering away in the background on the possibility of legal action. As I mentioned, I'm a veteran of the Kinnick witch hunt, and in those days we were successful in getting some legal action against the party, which indeed was responsible for setting up the NCC in the first place. The NCC was supposedly there to protect the people's rights to natural justice in the party. Now that's been completely scrapped. The right of the party are not even giving any, not in pretending that it's got anything to do with natural justice. It's just a kind of butchery process, really. Okay, and the final thing that we've got a new initiative now is as well as doing a survey on the victims of the witch hunt, is to do a survey on the perpetrators of the witch hunt. We know that it's been perpetrated by a network of right-wing trolls, often many associated with the pro-Israel lobby groups. So that's another initiative we've got coming up now. Now, I'll just finally say that we do welcome new members, but it may be not for everybody. We're particularly looking for people who've got data skills, information skills, knowledge of gaining information, and so on. So I look forward to hearing from you, and you'll be hearing from us soon with updates and reports. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Neil. Yeah, and again, please contact Neil. We'll have time for some very brief questions at the end, but please contact Neil if you're interested in joining the Witch Hunt Analysis Group. Thank you, Neil. And we're moving on now to the Racism and Anti-Semitism Group with Tony. Let's find Tony.
Right, yeah, I'm here.
Go on, then.
Okay, thank you, comrades. The Racism and Anti-Semitism group hasn't yet met, and I'd be grateful if people want to get involved in it, if they can contact me. As I said previously, I think we have to bury the myth once and for all that Labour had an anti-Semitism problem. It clearly did not. And in fact, one of the remarkable things about it is there are no victims of this massive anti-Semitism that we apparently witnessed in the Labour Party. It's an anti-Semitism which is completely victimless. On the other hand, what it's done is ignore the very real racism in society, racism against Black people, racism against Muslim people, the problem of Islamophobia. I mean, we had a new Labour government which introduced a whole raft of legislation which was targeted at Muslims, anti-terrorism legislation and so on. We had a demonisation of asylum seekers throughout the new Labour government. Yet there's been absolutely no mention of that. For example, the hostile environment policy. The Labour Party in 2014 under Ed Miliband, the parliamentary party, abstained on it, which in essence meant it supported it. Just 6 MPs, including Jeremy Corbyn, of course, opposed that legislation. So I think we really do have to be clear. Starmer, from the moment he entered as the leader, became leader of the Labour Party, made it clear that anti-Semitism was going to be the main weapon in his arsenal. And he was armed with 10 pledges from the Board of Deputies, you may remember, which candidates were invited, or not just invited, to support. And amongst those was, of course, a pledge that any Labour Party member who was seen on the same platform as someone who'd been expelled or suspended would themselves be suspended. An outrageous piece of McCarthyism which simply went by the board. And we've seen how Starmer has used anti-Semitism, firstly to remove Rebecca Long-Bailey from the shadow cabinet, and then suspend Jeremy Corbyn indefinitely. So one of the things we have to do is we have to launch a campaign against the IHRA. The IHRA, which is the definition of anti-Semitism accepted by the Labour Party, conflates anti-Zionism and anti-Semitism. In essence, if you speak out about Israeli apartheid, you are classified as an anti-Semite. There's been some very recent developments. There has, in just the past few days, been a new Jerusalem Declaration on anti-Semitism, which has been formulated by a number of leading academics. And while it's not perfect, this definition does at least target anti-Semitism, not anti-Zionism. And it makes it clear, and I think it's quite crucial, that boycott of Israel, for example, is not anti-Semitic, that anti-Zionism is not anti-Semitic. And while I have differences with this definition, it is something we can work with, and it's something we can argue should replace the adoption of the IHRA. We have to say to people quite simply, if you are concerned about anti-Semitism genuinely and not about supporting Israel, then you will not adopt the IHRA, but you will adopt this definition, and then we will continue. But also, I think we need to say anti-Semitism in this society is not a significant problem. It is not a problem of state racism. Jews are not economically oppressed. Driving a car while you're Jewish is not an offence. Compared to black people who suffer disproportionate economic discrimination, who are something like 190 over the last 20 years, I believe, have died in custody, Jews are not victims of state racism. They are victims, if anything, of a marginal prejudice at best. So we again have to be clear that if the Labour Party was seriously interested in racism, anti-Semitism would be the last priority in terms of the predominant prevailing racism in this society. And really, I mean, anti-Semitism has become the false anti-racism of the right. Let us be clear. It's a way of actually avoiding the fight against anti-Semitism. And so this group, and I hope we get it off the ground, has a number of things that it has to do. Firstly, dealing with the anti-Semitism problem, but also raising the profile of the fight against racism in society. We can see very clearly with the growth of the Black Lives Movement, the protest movement today, the police and crime bill, that we are in a different political situation. And Starmer has absolutely no answers to this. I have to say also, in terms of Starmer itself, what a pathetic specimen who represents the right. He symbolizes everything about the right. He has absolutely nothing to say. And in a sense, that is true of social democracy, not just in Britain, but in Europe wide. Social democracy is on the retreat. And we have to make it clear that we are the people who are going to replace it. Socialism has never been so urgent as it is today. Thank you, comrades.
Thank you, Tony. Just to say, and you may not have seen this, but there is a comment in the chat that is not acceptable. I think it says something like burn the witch hunters. So I would like people to take care about what they say. This is a meeting that has invited many, many people, and none of us here are witch hunters. I would like to think that none of us are witch hunters. So please be careful what you say in the chat. Thank you. We've got a couple more groups to get through. The disability group now with Christine. Thank you, Christine.
Hello, can you hear me?
Oh, yes, we can. Thank you.
Hello. I'm Christine Tong. I was the disability officer for South Thanet. I share my sofa and my life with the suspended chair of South Thanet. I was expelled in October for wishing good luck to Chris Williamson. So South Thanet doesn't have a disability officer anymore. I was the temporary secretary, so I was a kind of double prized for expulsion. It seems to me that the Labour Party has been excluding and purging disabled people long before the current witch hunt, just by making it very hard to get into meetings, get into any kind of position, and if they get any higher, to actually get into Parliament, which is full of steps and is very disabled unfriendly. I see the Disability Working Group as working in three main areas. One is access, physical access. We've been shut out of things, we've been shut out of buildings, we can't get wheelchairs up steps, we can't get them around our towns. You know, there's so much to do just in the way of physical access to everything. But also policy. People have been discriminated against in terms of government policies. Disabled people were the main victims of austerity even before the pandemic started, and we were the main victims of the pandemic. There are 14 million disabled people in the UK, and we need to be represented politically, and we're not at the moment. And the third thing is attitude. So access, policy, and attitude. We want respect, we want to be listened to, and we want people to take seriously the kind of things that we need. I see the Labour in Exile Network Working Group as finding the policies that we want to push Labour to push for in Parliament, that they're not doing. We're not being represented by the Labour Party at the moment at all. The shadow disability minister, it's a weird thing to say, but maybe she's not disabled enough to understand exactly what the problems are. They're not taking us seriously. I'd like people to join the group if you're disabled, but also if you're a carer, because disability tires you out. It stops you doing a lot of things, and maybe you just need to be someone connected to a disabled person who can represent their views. In South Thanet, the disability officers in the CLP and the different branches got fed up with getting no action through the Labour Party itself, through the official channels. So we set up what we thought of as a kind of military wing of the disability movement. We set up an organisation called Access Thanet, and we went around with our sticks and our wheelchairs, trying to get into buildings and making a fuss. And a lot of places built ramps and took care that they'd got a disabled entrance and thought about us. And when we booked meetings, we made sure that there was good disability access. It's endless though, because the world isn't geared to disabled people, and it should be. It should be taken into account in every left-wing policy that anyone formulates. I think Rona said earlier how people have been discriminated against, and people have died under the policies of the current government. They've been impoverished by the policies of the current government, and probably by Labour Party policies as well. So there's a lot to do. Please join us. The email address, I think, is on the chat, probably. And if there's anyone else who'd like to say anything, please do.
Yeah, so picking up on Christine's offer, is there anyone who'd like just to speak in reply to Christine? I don't think so. All right, well, please contact Christine, and we do want to make sure that the network it takes into account all the needs of people with disabilities, and that all of our meetings are accessible.
Can I just come back and say something about Zoom?
Oh, yeah, go on. Yeah.
It's been brilliant.
Good point. Good point. Yeah.
But it is a problem for some people, because if you've got the kind of disability that makes it difficult to speak quickly or to type fast, then you are disadvantaged on Zoom, and that has to be taken account of.
Sure.
Well. But thank God for Zoom.
Okay. Trish, did you have a comment to make about Christine's section?
Yeah, I did actually. I thought that was fantastic, Christine. I'm really glad that you talked about that. It's such a vital conversation. The two things that we often don't talk about in socialism enough is the environment and disabled people. Actually, I think they're the two subjects I'm really pleased to hear both come up here today. I think it's vital that we talk about disabled people now, because we can see a rise in fascism. We can see that happening in the UK. It's the 30s potentially all over again. It could, you know, it could, we need to keep an eye on fascism rising. And the first people to be attacked in fascist groups and the easiest targets, it seems, because nobody stands in solidarity enough, are disabled people. We know certainly disabled people have been used in so many ways in the past, particularly in the Nazi regime. And we know that things like Hans Asperger's, we talk about Asperger's syndrome today. We shouldn't be. He was a Nazi. He worked in the camps. He used his incredible skill and knowledge and he used disabled people to test upon. And we still say his name today, Asperger's syndrome. I tend to say high functioning autism or autistic spectrum disorder, because his name should never be uttered. But he's been totally forgiven, even though his whole learning was done on disabled children during the Nazi camps. You know, we've kind of forgotten that disabled people are targeted. They're targeted a lot. And today we know that disproportionately more disabled people have been affected by COVID than any other group. We also know they've been targeted by the government around, maybe by misinformation or incompetence, by being sent out, do not attempt to resuscitate letters via their GPs. So there's been really, really big attacks on disabled people in our lifetimes, and I don't think we talk about it enough in socialism. So thanks, brilliant, Christine. Thank you,
Trish. Sobering thoughts. Sobering thoughts. Thank you. Mike, you've got your hand up. Was yours a comment on the disability discussion?
Yes, it was.
Yeah, carry on.
Yeah, one thing that I think we need to look at, especially beginning internally, is the question of people with communication difficulties. Obviously, you know, there was a mention of the difficulty that some people have using Zoom, but there's a whole lot of people with other disabling conditions associated with physical disabilities and some not, who have problems with spoken language, with reading, etc. And that's something that I think we need to put into the mix in our consideration.
Okay, thank you very much, Mike. Some really good comments there. Thank you. We're going to move now onto the commemorative quilt working group. This sounds fascinating, and we've got Nicola. Are you there, Nicola?
I am, yes, and thank you so much. If I can just start with a link to to Christine's suggestion and the many comments. In my other life, I'm a retired speech and language therapist, and I work with people with learning disabilities, in particular those with severe communication problems. And I've been working all year setting up a project and administering it with colleagues with learning disabilities themselves, called Surviving Through Story. I will put that link in the chat. We're very interested. We're making people's voices heard so that they are not seen as victims. And I'm very keen to look at political activism with people with learning disabilities. It's something that I specialize in. So it's wonderful to hear of a disability working group, and I would love to have some kind of link. But onto the commemorative quilt. What is it? Okay, so I don't know how many of you are aware of the very long history of textiles as a way of expressing creative resistance in conflict situations. Or indeed in memorializing and commemorating issues that affect us all. The AIDS memorial quilt is something that everyone has heard of. I came to the idea of the quilt because I found that my emotional well-being was really being affected. I haven't been suspended. Although I'm a member of Southwest Wilts, where our secretary has been suspended. And it was just really eating away at me. And what I was finding is that I was waking up at night, I was anxious, I was angry the whole time. And I thought, what can I do that is going to inject a bit of life, a bit of creativity and fun? And I had the idea of a memorial quilt. So what will it look like? Well, there are two forms that it's taking. The first is an Instagram online virtual quilt. And all you have to do is post up a square, a picture of yourself. If it's an image of yourself and we need the story, the backstory with it, it would be nice to have a kind of line with it. But there's lots of instructions that go with it. The second, though, and that's the thing that I really want to launch here and ask you, because unless we can have it publicized and we can recruit people who enjoy drawing, printing, sewing, or just want to do something fun, creative, positive harnessing of energy. So I'm going to show you the mock-up that I have made, right? So in Southwest Wiltshire in Westbury, we have the Westbury White Horse. Now, anybody that's seen the Westbury White Horse knows that it's a very boring horse. It stands there like this. Well, sorry, that's a bit mean to it, but you know, it's an 18th century concrete version of something that I think was once rather more vibrant. However, so furious is our white horse at what has happened to our wonderful Southwest Wiltshire Labour Party and our wonderful secretary who's worked all her life for Labour, that it is galvanised into activity and is saying nay. And all around it are the words of David Evans. So it can be as angry as you like, but the idea is to get ourselves feeling creative and working together to produce something that we can show at Tolpuddle, and also that we can be using outside. We'd like to have it finished by September. What would we like to have? Well, ideally, we would like to have panels from all of the CLPs that are suspended. We want to represent every single one of them. But if you want to send in an image of yourself, the logo of any group, it can be as big as you like, but we need you to get the word out into your CLPs. I'm supported by Anna and Emily in Southwest Wilts, who are managing the Instagram side of it. I'm hugely grateful to Tina and the Labour Campaign for Free Speech, and in particular, John Courtneidge, who's been a huge support. The idea is to, as a working group, is to have monthly craft meetings where we just come together, draw, sew, and start actually making something that we can show as a visual image, a visual commemoration of what's going on. Because at the moment, all of it is in words, isn't it? And what we know is that history just repeats itself and gets lost. But a quilt that can be there for all time, commemorating this appalling assault on democracy, that's not going to go away. That's going to be there forever. That's going to remind people like Keir Starmer what they're up against. Thank you.
That's great, Nicola. Thank you. I really like the nay as well. I really like that play on words. Thank you so much. So please contact Nicola if you want to take part, and particularly if you're from a suspended officer's CRP, so you can be commemorated on it. Let's move on now to the last working group that we're talking about this evening, apart from any ideas that you might have later. This is a new one, actually. This one's just turned up today, the Republican Labour Working Group. Over to Steve. Thank you. I think it was at your meeting where you discussed this.
Yes.
Carry on.
Thank you. Yeah, it was brilliant, the last one. As I was looking at it, I was thinking, well, Oliver Cromwell, he had some cavalry, didn't he, in the New Model Army? So that
yes.
That's a thought I had. So I was inspired by horses to think about that. I should say the Republican Labour Working Group was set up in the Left Labour Alliance, and we've had about 4 meetings, including we had a kind of public event with Jackie Walker speaking to us. And the idea is that we wanted to see if we could cooperate and work with the Labour in Exile network, work together, cooperate together, share our ideas, and obviously report back to 2 different organisations. But we can, by working together and reporting back to different organisations, we get a little bit of economies of scale, if you want, in terms of doing that. So we think that cooperating, sharing, working together. I should say that obviously all socialists are opposed to monarchy. It's a ridiculous, absurd, undemocratic institution, a national monument to class rule, class privilege, built into the foundations of our constitution and our laws and the way the state works. And if you wanted a recent example of how this might work, you know, one little example of which there are many, look at the case of the 1972 Shrewsbury building workers who were recently, after I think it must be 50 years, just this last few days ago, got their pardon. 50 years they were struggling against the system and the way that system worked to stitch them up, lock them up, turn them into political prisoners. And if you study that, what's going on behind the scenes, the role of secrecy, the role of the state, agents provocateurs, it shows the real nature of how the state works. 50 years to get any kind of justice for them. As we know, Ricky Tomlinson and Des Warren, and of course Des Warren died a few years ago. He suffered severely when he was in prison. But I mean, you could think of many, many different examples of the way in which our state and law actually operates. Now, we can all agree to oppose the monarchy, but as soon as we try to think, how important is this? What can we do about it? What should we put in its place? We start to become a little bit more disunited, and it can all fall apart like a cheap suit. So the idea was we need to get all our information, all our knowledge that we can get together from our tradition in order to produce an effective report that we can work on, gather that information together. There's always been a Republican element in the Labour Party, and there have been, in fact, 4, formally at least, Republican leaders of the Labour Party: Keir Hardie, George Lansbury, Michael Foot, and Jeremy Corbyn. The only one in my mind who was who you could say was a serious Republican, really, at the end of the day, was Tony Benn, who put a Republican bill to Parliament in 1992, and it's nothing has been done that's better than that and more serious from the Labour tradition. On the other hand, every Labour Prime Minister, Ramsay MacDonald, Clement Attlee, Harold Wilson, James Callaghan, Tony Blair, Gordon Brown, they've all been loyal to the Crown and to the monarchy. Now, there is a deep crisis of democracy, whether we're talking about what's going on in the Labour Party or talk about what's going on in the state. And I just had a little look at the Tory manifesto. And this Tory manifesto from 2019 is both bland and menacing, because they understand how power works and they understand how they need to defend that power. So the number one thing for them, of course, is the union, which they're very, very worried about. But in their manifesto, they say that they need to look, and they're going to look this thing at what they say, the broader aspects of our constitution, the relationship between government, parliament and the courts, the functioning of the royal prerogative, the role of the House of Lords, the access to justice for ordinary people, the ability of security services to defend us against terrorism and organised crime, and they're going to update the Human Rights Act and administrative law to ensure that it all works wonderfully on our behalf.
Un corito sano, mi bebito tan loco que parece capestrano, acá se corre fino, no me
Sorry, we
como
seem
con
to have some
gusano.
interference. Can anyone see where the interference is coming from? Is it?
Sorry.
Sorry, I have muted everybody. Steve, can you unmute yourself, please?
Sorry, Tina, there we go. I just stopped at that point. So I'm just simply reading out all the stuff from the Tory manifesto. It's bland, but it is actually quite threatening if you look to see what those words really mean and what they're planning to do. And they end up by saying, in the first year, they say, we will set up a Constitution, Democracy and Rights Commission to examine these issues in depth. So they're thinking about the issues and how they're going to change the state and reorganize the state and our laws and rights to their benefit. We on our side of the fence, Keir Starmer's doing something like talking about radical devolution, a reformed monarchy, a reformed House of Lords, and maybe even PR. But we on our side as socialists need to look at this whole question much more thoroughly and come up with our alternative to what the Tories are planning to do. There's a crisis of democracy and the left needs to have a very clear and united position.
Thank you,
that's
Steve.
what our working group is aiming to do.
So obviously, thank you very much. It's obvious that you've done quite a lot of work already, and it's great that there's collaboration across a couple of left groups. So yeah, please send in your details if you want to join that group. Sounds really interesting. And finally, we're going to have to move on swiftly. We've got just a quick word from Faraz about your coffee mornings. Faraz, do you want to just tell people about this?
Thanks, guys, for the turnout. An acquaintance of mine, Anthony Jemmett, on March 1st proposed a political coffee morning, which was an interesting idea. The pandemic has caused a lot of self-isolating, Many Labour members are geographically and physically isolated and let alone, as well as witch hunted. As the contributor previously said, face-to-face human politics is important. I'm a volunteer on the steering group by some miracle. It's important to know what members are thinking and feeling. And the proposed chat group would be act as an antenna, even if you, and we won't judge you, even if you voted for Starmer, and in error, obviously. If you find yourself in a bourgeois ghetto, be it blue Labour or blue Tory, we will support you in coming out as a Corbynist or socialist. You can vent your mental stress in an informal environment, and we'll lend you our friendly ears. We want to try to create some kind of entertainment, like maybe composing an anthem for LIEN, or vote for the worst or best political event. Face-to-face interaction is vital for mental health and our morale as a persecuted group, much like the apartheid suffering Palestinians are. I myself has been suspended for 5 years. Introverts will be cherished and democratic speech, I hope, will be valued. It's an organic work in progress. Hopefully it will end in hard action. As the adage goes, action speaks louder than words, but words are a start. Please see the LIEN Facebook website in the events section. Thanks.
Thank you. And there is a coffee morning, I think on Tuesday, isn't there? 11 o'clock.
Yes.
So have a look and come and join us and maybe do some singing. Who knows? Might bring your knitting too. All right, let's yeah, so and drink coffee, as you say, Nicola. So finally, we've only got 5 minutes left now, but there is an email address that you can use if you want to send in proposals for further working groups. Please, if you want to propose a working group, it would be good if you could actually join it. And the email that you need to use is info@labour-in-exile.org, as in the chat. So we've got just a couple of minutes left. Does anybody want to make a final contribution before we go? And then I'll just sum up about what we're going to do next. Alan, I think, Alan, you haven't spoken yet, have you? Go ahead, Alan.
Yeah, thanks, Esther. It's the first of your meetings that I've joined. I found it very useful. One of the things I think we should be doing is getting a working group to look at the Labour administration. I think one of the things we're all concerned about is the restrictions on freedom of speech. And also, I've had personal experience over the last year that the disciplinary system just does not work. Sorry.
We'll carry on, Alan, because I was just going to say, if you want to put something in writing, because and also have a look at what the other working groups are doing, because some of those things that you've said are already included in some of the working groups. So
I'll put something in writing, and then you can come back and look at the best way of doing it.
That's
because,
great.
As I say, I've had personal experience of the disciplinary system not working, where we put serious complaints in about people a year ago, and nothing's happened.
Oh yeah, okay, all right then, thank you.
Thank you.
I think probably we'd best close now. Just to remind you, if you've got any further proposals for working groups, please email us, and we will be having another meeting. What we'll do next is we'll take back all the comments that we've had from the meeting this evening, and we'll take them to the steering committee, and we'll look at how we can incorporate all of the feedback here either into our working groups or into other actions that we need to progress. So thank you very much for joining us on a Saturday evening, and we look forward to seeing you at a working group, at a coffee morning, or at our next meeting. Thank you very much, comrades. Good evening.
You can now all unmute yourself and talk.
Yeah, wave goodbye.
Yay! Bye! 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 Bye!
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Very initiative.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Have a nice
I think it comes
evening.
later.
Thank you. Solidarity, comrades.
Solidarity.
There's a working group on Brexit because Sir Lewis Thomas didn't want to do it again.
Jackie.